Imagine this. You're standing in front of the mirror one morning, not to admire yourself, not to fix your tie, but to look into your own eyes and ask a question that too few men ever dare to ask. What governs me? My mind or my emotion? The reflection stares back, quiet and unreadable. There's a faint tension there, the residue of years spent reacting instead of responding. Somewhere between anger and restraint, pride and shame, there is a man who has fought invisible wars, not against others, but within himself. Every man reaches this crossroads eventually, the place where the external victories, the promotions, the muscles, the conquests, cease to silence the storm inside, where every argument won feels hollow, and every outburst leaves a scar. It's here that the concept of emotional fortitude begins to matter. Not the brittle armor of suppression, but the tempered steel of mastery. The man who conquers kingdoms without conquering his emotions is still a servant, chained not by others, but by himself. Emotional fortitude is not numbness. It is presence without panic, motion without frenzy. It is to see the chaos around you and remain unmoved, not because you are indifferent, but because you have become sovereign. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from the tyranny of destructive passions. To them, a man's true power was never measured by how loud he roared, but by how calmly he faced the storm. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Yet how many men truly live by that? Most confuse control with avoidance. They run from pain instead of observing it. They bury anger instead of studying its root. They seek validation through women, wealth, or dominance, mistaking external conquest for inner stability. But those who endure, the disciplined few, understand that to feel deeply and remain steady is the highest form of strength. There's a quiet dignity in the man who does not flinch when insulted, who does not beg when abandoned, who does not crumble when misunderstood. He has faced his shadows and recognized that no external rejection can compare to the self-betrayal of losing composure. He knows that emotion, when ungoverned, turns men into puppets, jerking violently to the strings of ego and insecurity. But mastery does not come through denial. It comes through confrontation. To master emotion, one must first walk willingly into the fire of feeling, shame, anger, grief, and emerge forged rather than burned. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the rehearsal of adversity. To imagine loss, humiliation, or failure until they no longer hold power over you. It is not pessimism, it is training, a sharpening of the soul against the inevitable edges of life. In a world that worships instant expression, where every emotion demands an audience, restraint has become rebellion. The modern man is taught to be vulnerable, yet seldom taught how to be disciplined in that vulnerability. Stoic strength does not mean closing your heart. It means opening it wide, but not letting the floodwaters sweep you away. It is the art of standing firm in tenderness, a paradox that only the truly evolved man can embody. When a man masters his emotions, he becomes immune to manipulation. Neither praise nor rejection sways him. The woman who once tested his patience now finds mystery in his calm. The rivals who once provoked his anger now wither under his silence. Because he has understood the secret, the world bends to the one who bends inward first. The mind, once fortified, turns every insult into instruction, every wound into wisdom. So the first principle of emotional fortitude is not external. It is internal alignment. the awareness that your reactions reveal your training. When someone disrespects you and you remain calm, you've not suppressed emotion. You've transmuted it. You've seen the moment not as an attack, but as an exercise in power. Anger, when mastered, becomes focus. Fear, when examined, becomes intuition. Loneliness, when embraced, becomes peace. Every emotion is an invitation, not to explode, but to evolve. And that is what separates the ordinary man from the Stoic. The ordinary man lives in reaction. The Stoic lives in rhythm. He does not chase comfort. He cultivates composure. He understands that a man's emotional state is his real home. And if that home is chaotic, no wealth, no woman, no success will ever make him rest easy. You are not asked to feel less. You are asked to feel deeper, but with discipline. To witness every rise of emotion as a messenger, not a master. To remember that even the storm serves the sea. It stirs the depths so the waters may purify. In the same way, pain refines the man who welcomes it as a teacher. That is where fortitude begins, not in the absence of feeling, but in the precision of response. A man does not become unshakable by avoiding pain, but by absorbing it until it loses its teeth. He learns to sit with discomfort, to let silence gnaw at him without rushing to fill it. Most men spend their lives running from what they feel, drowning sorrow in distraction, numbing loneliness with validation, masking insecurity with anger. Yet every time he escapes the flame, he weakens his spirit. True fortitude demands standing inside the fire long enough to understand its language. It begins with awareness. Every emotion carries a message. Every reaction reveals a wound. The man who pays attention learns that anger often hides grief, and that pride is merely fear dressed in armor. To see beyond the surface of emotion is to reclaim power from the unconscious, the realm Jung called the shadow. Within that darkness lie the fragments of self long disowned, the boy who felt small, the man who felt unseen, the lover who felt unworthy. When unexamined, they rule him in silence. When faced, they dissolve into wisdom. The second principle of emotional fortitude is the mastery of pause. Between every stimulus and response lies a sacred interval, the space where evolution happens. It is where the untrained man erupts and the disciplined man breathes. In that breath, the storm within has a chance to subside, revealing clarity beneath chaos. The pause is not weakness, it is command. The soldier who fires without aim is reckless. The man who speaks without stillness is the same. Control begins not with suppression, but with space. A moment long enough to see whether the emotion serves truth or vanity. To cultivate that space requires solitude. A man who cannot sit in silence is not free. Solitude strips him of pretense. It forces confrontation with the noise inside. In that quiet, he will hear the restless echoes of comparison, regret, and desire. The endless whispering of ego, begging to be fed. Only when he stops answering does peace begin. The Stoics spent their lives in conversation with stillness, not because they feared people, but because they understood that clarity grows in silence the way roots grow in darkness. A man who seeks constant company is escaping himself. The third principle is to detach from outcome. Every emotional disturbance is born from expectation, the belief that the world should bend to desire. The Stoic does not demand that events please him. He demands only that he remain upright whatever they bring. The modern man measures his worth in results, success, approval, affection. But when these become conditions for peace, His spirit becomes a hostage. Freedom comes when one realizes that life is not obliged to be kind, only to be instructive. Every disappointment is training, every rejection a lesson in detachment. When a man stops expecting the world to validate him, he becomes untouchable. There's a quiet nobility in emotional restraint, not repression, but choice. To feel anger and choose composure, to feel lust and choose patience, to feel fear and choose movement. In a society addicted to expression, mastery is rebellion. The disciplined man is no longer performing emotions for the world's approval. He is cultivating precision. He feels everything, but he chooses what to act upon. This is not suppression. It is selection. Like a sculptor removing excess marble, he chips away at impulse until only essence remains. In the forge of restraint, respect is born. Others begin to feel it, not as fear, but as weight. The man who does not react immediately gains gravity. His silence commands more than another man's words. When a woman sees that he cannot be provoked by jealousy, manipulation, or flattery, she recognizes something ancient, a stability that predates chaos. She senses that his emotions are not for sale, and that realization changes everything. Yet this strength must not harden into isolation. The Stoic ideal is not coldness, but composure. A man who cannot love because he fears vulnerability is no master of emotion. He is its prisoner. Emotional fortitude is not about being untouched. It's about being unbroken. The disciplined man opens his heart, knowing it may bleed, but he never lets the wound define him. His love is a choice, not a dependency. His patience, a power, not a weakness. His calm does not hide indifference. It reveals depth. To live this way is to live in alignment, no longer at war with feeling, but no longer ruled by it. When insulted, he sees the pain behind the aggressor's words. When betrayed, he understands that loyalty cannot be forced. When alone, he feels not emptiness, but expansion. He has outgrown the need to prove himself because he now understands the battlefield was never out there. It was always within. And so, emotional fortitude becomes not a shield, but a mirror, reflecting the man back to himself. Every challenge is a chance to measure progress. Every irritation, a lesson in patience. Every heartbreak, a reminder that love's purpose was never possession, but purification. The man who learns this becomes unmovable, not because he resists life, but because he flows with it, like a river that cuts through stone, not through force, but through persistence. The fourth principle of emotional fortitude is endurance through stillness. A man's greatest battles are fought not in moments of chaos, but in the long stretches of uncertainty, the hours when nothing happens, when no applause comes, when the world seems indifferent to his effort. It's in those empty spaces that impatience eats at him, whispering that he's falling behind. Yet it is precisely in those moments that strength is tempered. The Stoics knew that time is the ultimate teacher, and the man who can wait without losing heart has already won half the war. Stillness is not stagnation. It is tension mastered. It is the tiger crouching before the leap, the blacksmith holding the blade in flame until it glows white. Every man who has achieved something lasting has known the ache of delayed reward. But instead of despair, he made a ritual of patience, because he understood. Those who rush betray their discipline, and those who chase destroy their dignity. Endurance is quiet power, the calm refusal to let the external dictate the internal. The fifth principle is emotional transmutation, the art of turning pain into progress. Every wound carries energy, and energy, when directed with precision, becomes creation. The Stoic man does not waste suffering. He refines it. When insulted, he channels it into resolve. When betrayed, he transforms it into wisdom. When rejected, he molds it into independence. Nothing is wasted in the hands of a disciplined soul. The modern man who learns this no longer fears heartbreak or loss. He welcomes them as opportunities for expansion. The alchemy of emotion turns lead into gold, but only for the man who endures the heat of transformation. The sixth principle is sovereignty over narrative. Most men let others write their story. Society, parents, lovers, failures. They carry scripts handed to them. You're not enough. You're too soft. You must prove your worth. But emotional fortitude begins when a man takes the pen back, when he decides that no event defines him unless he consents. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the known world, wrote nightly to remind himself that opinion and outcome were illusions. Only character endured. The man who understands this ceases to perform. He begins to be. He realizes that emotional independence is not detachment from people, but from dependence on their approval. A man can love deeply without clinging, give fully without expecting return. That balance makes him dangerous because he cannot be owned. No flattery can buy him, no insult can shake him. He walks through life with a quiet certitude that peace is his birthright and turmoil only his training ground. The seventh principle is radical acceptance. To resist what is only multiplies suffering. The Stoics taught amor fati, love your fate, not tolerate it, not endure it. Love it because it is yours. The disciplined man stops asking, why me? And begins asking, what now? Acceptance does not mean surrendering ambition. It means ceasing to argue with reality. Once a man stops demanding that life be fair, he can start making it beautiful. He sees that every hardship has carved him, every loss has hollowed him, just enough to hold more wisdom, more compassion, more truth. The man of fortitude carries this awareness like armor. When others rage against circumstance, he adapts. When others despair, he recalibrates. His calm is not passive, it's strategic. Like a sailor who cannot control the wind, but commands the sails. He steers through storms by adjusting himself, not the sea. And from that acceptance grows serenity, the eighth principle. Serenity is not found in still waters. It is found in mastery, amidst waves. The calm man is not lucky. He is practiced. He has rehearsed chaos so often that peace feels like muscle memory. His mind is trained to return to center. No matter how violently the world spins, this serenity becomes magnetic. Others feel it, not as arrogance, but as grounding. In his presence, people breathe easier. They sense that nothing can truly disturb a man who is already at home within himself. To reach this state, one must also practice the ninth principle, emotional economy. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every invitation to conflict is worth attending. The Stoic man spends emotion as the wise spend gold, with intention. He invests it only where it multiplies purpose. Modern society glorifies outrage and overreaction, but the man of fortitude measures his expenditure carefully. He knows that every burst of anger, every hour of rumination, is energy stolen from creation. So he saves his emotion for what builds rather than burns. And so, one by one, these principles form a foundation, not of perfection, but of presence. The disciplined man does not live without emotion. He lives above it, like a captain steering his vessel through storm and sun alike. He understands that strength is not hardness, but harmony. The man who feels deeply yet remains steady is the rarest kind of warrior, the one who fights not for dominance, but for mastery of self. The 10th principle of emotional fortitude is humility in strength. The man who believes he has mastered himself has already begun to fall. True mastery is not arrogance, it is awareness that the journey never ends. The Stoics warned of pride disguised as peace. The subtle vanity of thinking one is beyond emotion. The wise man remains a student, even of his own calm. He observes his reactions like a scientist studying fire, not to boast of control, but to refine it. Humility protects strength from corruption. Without it, composure turns into coldness, and discipline becomes ego in armor. The man of fortitude carries humility, the way a warrior carries his sword, with reverence. He knows that one careless swing can wound himself as easily as another. So, he stays alert, self-aware, grounded. He does not proclaim mastery. He demonstrates it quietly in how he treats others. The 11th principle is self-respect through boundaries. A man without boundaries cannot possess fortitude because he allows others to dictate his emotions. Boundaries are not walls. They are gates of respect. The Stoic man understands that saying no is not cruelty. It is clarity. When he refuses gossip, drama, or emotional manipulation, he is not withdrawing. He is protecting his temple. Each no he utters strengthens his foundation. Each refusal to be dragged into chaos reinforces his sovereignty. Boundaries teach others how to treat him, but more importantly, they teach him how to treat himself. They are acts of discipline disguised as silence. The man who guards his energy fiercely soon discovers that his peace is no longer negotiable. From boundaries arises the 12th principle: honor through integrity. Emotional fortitude cannot coexist with deceit because lies fracture the inner architecture of strength. The Stoics spoke of living in accordance with nature, which, in essence, means living in accordance with truth. The man who betrays his word corrupts his own peace. His conscience becomes his jailer. Integrity is not merely moral, it is mechanical. Without it, the structure collapses. To be emotionally strong is to be honest, even when honesty costs comfort. To tell the truth when silence would be easier. To face one's flaws without disguise. To admit fear without surrender. These are the unseen victories of the disciplined man. Each confession purifies the heart. Each truth spoken refines the soul. He becomes unshakable, not because he avoids darkness, but because he stands in it with the lamp of honesty lit. The 13th principle is detachment from possession. The Stoic understands that ownership is illusion. Everything he clings to, status, beauty, affection, reputation, belongs to time, not to him. When he grasps, he suffers. When he releases, he reigns. To hold without clinging, to love without owning, to succeed without becoming enslaved to success. This is mastery. A man who can walk away from what he loves when necessary carries the kind of peace that terrifies those still dependent on external things. Detachment does not mean disinterest. It means devotion without desperation. He can give deeply and still remain whole when it's gone. Because his joy was never borrowed, it was built within. The 14th principle is purpose before pleasure. Modern men chase stimulation. The Stoic chases meaning. Pleasure fades the moment it's consumed, but purpose sustains like breath. When a man aligns his actions with a mission greater than himself, his emotions begin to serve him rather than sabotage him. Desire becomes direction. Pain becomes fuel. He no longer wakes each day asking, "What will make me happy?" but rather, "What will make me useful?" And that question reshapes him. His happiness becomes a byproduct of impact, not indulgence. He no longer needs constant highs because he lives at steady altitude. The Stoic's joy is quiet but enduring, the satisfaction of knowing he has acted well, even when unseen. The 15th and final principle is emotional freedom through surrender. The highest fortitude is not resistance, but release. After years of striving, a man discovers that peace comes not from conquering life, but from aligning with it. Surrender is not defeat, it is harmony. It is the realization that one cannot control outcomes, only effort, not others, only self. In this surrender, the man finds an almost divine calm. He stops forcing and starts flowing. He stops reacting and starts responding. He no longer fears loss because he has learned that nothing real can be taken from him, only illusions. And so he stands still while the world spins, rooted like an ancient tree whose strength comes not from rigidity, but from depth. This is emotional fortitude, the quiet, radiant power of a man who has met his shadows, tempered his will, and now walks untethered. His presence calms rooms. His silence teaches more than sermons. He has become what the Stoics envisioned, a fortress in human form. And at the heart of that fortress, peace waits, not as a reward, but as a return. For the man who has mastered emotion has rediscovered his essence, unbent, unbound, unbroken.